As far as the way the CPA exam is set up, the format of the exam, basically the exam is set up where you have financial, regulation, and auditing. These consist of about 70% multiple choice and 30% simulations. Now with the simulations, it's really about 20 points on the problems themselves, and 10% is called written communication. So they want to test you on whether or not you can communicate clearly. In other words, they're looking on technical content and also writing skills, clear, concise, complete, use of standard English. They want to make sure all of that is correct. That's financial, regulation, and auditing. With BEC, this is set up where it's multiple choice questions. And what they're going to do towards the end of the decade, basically, is they're going to bring some of the written communications over here into the BEC exam. So the way it's set up currently is you've got 70% multiple choice, 20% simulation problems, 10% communication. BEC is 100% multiple choice. Again, in about 2010, they're going to start bringing in some written communications, which is really just testing you on your writing skills. So that's kind of the breakdown on the way that the exam itself is set up. When you look at an individual exam, and let me break it down over here for you. When you take an individual exam, you have 3 different testlets. Testlet number 1, testlet 2, testlet 3. And in each of these testlets, you have about 30 multiple choice, 30 multiple choice, 30 multiple choice. Then you have 2 simulations. Now that's for fair, reg, and audit. You have simulation 1 and simulation 2. These are worth about 70%. These are worth about 30%, with the exception of BEC, which would stop here. It would have 100% of your score is this. Again, in about 2010, they're going to introduce maybe 10 to 20% of written communication. The other 3 exams, fair, reg, and audit, are about 90 multiple choice. Regulation generally has about 72. And you have 2 simulation problems. So the way it's set up is generally you'll have this first testlet. You click on a box, it opens up a window, you work through, and you have 4 choices. Then at the bottom of the page, you can mark them for review. Then as you're going back and forth and back between the 30, then it'll say, hey, do you want to take a break? No, because there's a countdown clock, and there's a clock there. So for example, financial accounting has 4 hours. So you see this clock going 4 hours, 3:59, 3:58, 3:57, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and you start feeling your life pass away, right? Oh my gosh, you're thinking I should have started studying sooner. So you want to watch the countdown clock carefully, but basically part of taking the exam is good time management. So for example, with financial accounting, you might reserve about 50 minutes, 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and I generally tell people about 45 minutes per simulation problem. You can only go in one direction. So you're doing the first 30, you can go back and forth within the 30. You can mark questions for review. Let's say you look at a cash flow question. You go, gosh, I know cash flows. They're asking for operating, investing, and financing activities. I know how to do it, but I've only got about 1.25 minutes per question. So it's a 3-part question. That's like 4.5 minutes. You know what? Let me mark those 3 and come back to them. Now, you don't want to go through and mark them all. You're not going to have time to review them all. But you can mark a couple, come back and look at them. Then, when you're done, it'll say, okay, you're done with the first 30. Do you want to take a break? No, you don't, because the clock keeps ticking. Then you go to the next 30 questions. Then you go to the next 30. Now remember, this is like a smorgasbord of accounting. It doesn't say the next 12 questions are on bonds. Instead, it'll say, here's a bond question, here's leases, here's deferred taxes, here's consolidations, here's a couple of government questions. Let's sprinkle it with some nonprofit. Hey, so you're going to see questions from all the different areas within the 30, 30, 30. Then you get over to the simulation problems, and if you look, you'll see with the simulation problems, you'll have, for example, a couple of tabs. And with these questions, you click on this and it kind of opens up a window. And when it opens up this window, up here basically is the clock, and it has different parts to do, horizontal split, vertical split, unsplit, calculator, sheet, done. Then over here, you'll have different areas. And some of those different areas may include, for example, where you're looking at it, it may say things like directions, situation, resources, and then you'll have different problems here, and they have a little pencil icon. Now, again, we're looking at this simulation, about 45 minutes for this. It's worth 10 points, this one's worth 10 points, and then one of these, each of them has a written communication. One of them is worth 10, the other's worth 0. So you don't know which one is worth more. One is worth 10. I tell people, be careful, do that first. Do the written communication first. Usually this right here is the written communication. So what I'll tell students is, click on this, it opens up the window, do the written communication first. Usually pretty straightforward question. They're asking you to, again, write kind of an essay. So when you look, for example, it'll say something like, reminder, your response is graded for both technical content and writing skills. Content is evaluated for information that is helpful to the intended reader and clearly relevant to the issue. Writing skills is evaluated for development, organization, and the appropriate expression of ideas in a professional correspondence. Use a standard business memo or letter format with a beginning, middle, and an end. Do not convey information in the form of a table, bullet point list, or abbreviations. So they want to make sure that, again, what you're looking at is clear, concise, complete. So that's very, very important. So I tell students, start with the written communication first. Then go back to the resource tab, because that'll have information you need during the problem. So for example, it may have questions where they want you to go through, and they may want you, for example, to calculate marketable securities. And they're giving you a question over here about marketable securities, and they're saying, here's the ending of the year numbers, and they want to know unrealized gain or loss. The problem is, where do they have the purchase price? Maybe it's buried here in resources. Maybe it's analytical procedures, study of data comparisons and relationships, and the ratios are buried over here. So I always tell people, go, after you do the written communication, come back and do this. Then you need to just pick each of these off. As you click on that, it opens a window. As you close it, it comes back shaded. Just because it's shaded doesn't mean you answered the question. What it means is at least you opened up the window. So it's important to realize. You'll see here a couple of slides where, again, you'll see different parts of the questions where it's going through and asking you to do different parts. You'll also see a research and authoritative literature tab where you're clicking on that, and it's basically asking you to go through and do a little research where you're looking for certain things. The key is study hard, don't get discouraged. Woo, do a little Michael Jackson walk. Come on down. I've been teaching almost 20 years after I left Deloitte & Touche. I've done this for many, many years, helped thousands and thousands of people accomplish their goal, which is to get through the exam.